Good morning. Today is Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. This is an adjudicatory hearing before the Massachusetts Gaming Commission relative to a request for a finding of durable suitability for Bally's Interactive LLC, which currently holds a temporary Category 3 untethered sports wagering operator license. During this hearing, I will refer to Bally's Interactive LLC as Bally's or the licensee. My name is Jordan Maynard, and I serve as the chair of the commission. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Commissioners Eileen O'Brien, Nikisha Skinner, and Paul Broder. I will note that Commissioner Hill will join as he can. He does have some serious business to attend to today.
I am here.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Hill. With that, the entire commission will preside over the hearing and decision in this matter. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with 205 CMR 101.01, the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 10 and 11, and 801 CMR 101.02, the Informal Fair Hearing Rules. This hearing is being conducted via remote collaboration technology. Before we begin, I would like to explain the process that will govern this proceeding. First, a notice of hearing was provided to Bally's in advance of today's hearing. Therein, it identified the issues that this hearing is intended to address. This commission has indicated that it will specifically be considering the issues discussed in the notice, including the following: the durable suitability of Bally's pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011, and the contents of the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau's suitability report. I will now turn to Deputy General Counsel Jenna Hentoff to explain the suitability standard that we will be considering during our discussion today. Good morning, Councilor Hentoff. You're on mute, Councilor Hentoff.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners and everyone attending. We are here today to consider a durable finding of suitability for Bally's Interactive LLC, or Bally's, under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1. The Commission adopted Section 215 of the regulations to govern suitability determinations in connection with sports wagering licenses. In Section 215, the Commission included provisions allowing for a durable finding of suitability, also known as the final determination of suitability, as well as provisions related to a preliminary finding of suitability. Bally's currently holds a preliminary finding of suitability, which the Commission approved on January 6, 2023. The finding of preliminary suitability was based on an evaluation of the criteria set forth in 205 CMR 215.012, 205 CMR 218.065F, and Mass General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 6D. As a quick refresher, the suitability criteria enumerated in those statutes and regulations include the following: the overall reputation of the applicant, including but not limited to the integrity, honesty, good character, and reputation of the applicant or qualifier, the financial suitability, integrity, and background of the applicant or qualifier, the business practices and the business ability of the applicant to establish and maintain a successful sports wagering operation, whether the applicant or qualifier has a history of compliance with gaming or sports wagering licensing requirements in other jurisdictions, whether the applicant or qualifier at the time of the application is a defendant in litigation or in litigation involving its business practices, the suitability of all parties and interests to the license, including affiliates and close associates, and the financial resources of the applicant, whether the applicant or qualifier is ineligible to hold the license under 205 CMR 215.014, Mass General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 9A, or Chapter 23N, Section 6E, whether the applicant or qualifier has been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude, whether and to what extent the applicant or qualifier has associated with members of organized crime and other persons of disreputable character, and the extent to which the applicant and or qualifier has cooperated with the IEB during the review of the application. By the terms of 205 CMR 215 of the Commission's regulations, any durable finding of suitability must be supported by clear and convincing evidence, not just substantial evidence, which is a lower standard used for the remainder of the licensing application. Our jurisprudence tells us that clear and convincing proof exists when the evidence induces in the mind of the fact finder a reasonable belief that the facts asserted are highly probably true, that the probability that they are true or exist is substantially greater than the probability that they are false or do not exist. For evidence to be clear and convincing, it must be sufficient to convey a high degree of probability that the proposition to be proved is true, and it must be strong and positive and full, clear, and decisive. In the matter before you today, you may choose to award a durable finding of suitability if you conclude that the applicant and each of its qualifiers have demonstrated their suitability by clear and convincing proof. Such a finding would be a positive determination under 205 CMR 215.011E and may include conditions and restrictions if applicable. If the commission determines that the evidentiary burden for suitability is not met, it would issue a negative determination with respect to suitability. And with that, I turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Hintoff. I understand that Bally's is represented by counsel here today. So at this time, I would ask Bally's counsel to please identify themselves and the team.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Pleasure to be with you today. My name is James Bally. I'm a partner at the law firm Nixon Peabody, and I am joined by my colleague, Michael Prescott. Together, we're here as counsel representing Bally's. And as you noted, throughout the hearing, we'll use the term Bally's to refer to Bally's Interactive LLC. The applicant will refer to the Bally's team generally, and we'll say Bally's Corporation when specifically referring to Bally's parent company, which is also an entity qualifier in this matter. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Aaliyah Trowbridge, Bally's Chief Compliance Officer, to introduce the Bally's team.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, Chair Maynard and members of the commission. My name is Aaliyah Trowbridge. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer for Bally's Corporation. I'm happy to be here today on behalf of Bally's. And with me today are the individual qualifiers: Sue Young Kim, Executive Chair of the Board of Bally's Corporation; Robeson Reeves, CEO of Bally's Corporation; George Papanier, President of Bally's Corporation and Manager of Bally's Interactive; Craig Eaton, Senior VP and Secretary for Bally's Corporation and Manager, Senior VP and Secretary for Bally's Interactive; and Noel Hayden, a greater than 10% shareholder of Bally's Corporation. Additionally, members of Bally's management and executive teams are present here today as witnesses on behalf of Bally's. They represent a variety of departments and areas of expertise within Bally's, including information and cybersecurity, technology, corporate finance, legal, regulatory compliance, and responsible gaming. They will be available to answer any questions that the commission may have for Bally's and Bally's Corporation. And on behalf of Bally's, I want to thank the commission and the IEB for their time today and during the investigation process. We are pleased with the IEB's report and its recommendation for a positive finding of durable suitability. We recognize that notwithstanding the positive recommendation, the IEB did identify certain areas of concern. Bally's does not contest those findings, and if found suitable, we will work diligently to address each of those issues within timelines prescribed by the commission. We look forward to answering any questions that the commissioners may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trowbridge, and thank you to your team. Thank you, Counselor Valley. At the conclusion of, I hate to say my opening comments because it's the world's longest opening. At the conclusion of these next comments, this proceeding will commence with the IEB's presentation of its findings to the commission pursuant to 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1 and 205 CMR 115.03. Any commissioner may ask a question of anyone presenting information at any point during or following the presentation. At the conclusion of the IEB's presentation, Bally's will be afforded the opportunity to ask questions of any individual who presented any information on behalf of the IEB as well. At the conclusion of the IEB's presentation, the licensee will be given the same opportunity to make a presentation. They may call any witness and present any other evidence they desire. As before, any commissioner may ask any question of any witness or presenter at any time during or after the presentation. Bally's may raise any objection it desires at any time. However, the basis for all objections must be clearly stated. After the licensee's presentation, the commission will address each topic area from the notice of hearing in turn, and each commissioner will have a full opportunity to ask questions of any witnesses concerning those topic areas before moving on. Finally, at the conclusion of the presentations of all the evidence, the licensee will be provided with an opportunity to make closing remarks, summing up its view on suitability. Before we begin, I understand that there are a number of exhibits that have been prepared and pre-marked in advance of this hearing. Those exhibits are identified on the exhibit lists that each party received. Will each party please confirm receipt of the exhibit list containing exhibit numbers 1 through 13? Starting with Attorney Kennedy. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, we have received the entire packet along with the exhibits and exhibit list.
And Attorney Bally?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All
No,
right, thank you. I will note for the record that the exhibit list will be added as exhibit number 14 for the purposes of this proceeding. Are there any objections to exhibit 1 through 14 being marked and entered into evidence?
No objection from the IED.
no objection from Bally's.
Thank you. Those exhibits shall be admitted into evidence. For the purposes of ensuring a clean record, I ask that everyone, when possible, please refer to those exhibit numbers. If anyone would like to have additional documents entered into evidence during the course of the hearing, please ensure that they are properly introduced and marked for the record. As explained, the Commission anticipates that its inquiry at this proceeding will be related to the matters addressed in the notice of hearing relative to the licensee's durable finding of suitability. In the event that a line of questioning conducted by the Commission moves into an area that has not been included in the report or notice, but that is material to the final determination of this matter, any party may request a recess in the proceeding in order to review the issue. The Commission will deliberate privately and make a final decision at the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of this hearing. The written decision will be issued as promptly as possible. If at any point during the Commission's deliberations it determines that further testimonial or documentary evidence is desirable, it reserves the right to ask the appropriate party to provide such evidence prior to a final decision being made. We will now swear in all the witnesses. Attorney Kennedy and Attorney Bally, are all the individuals you anticipate presenting testimony in this matter present on this call?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. If there's anyone who is not present who will later testify, it will be up to you to notify the Commission and I will place them under oath. Anyone who will be testifying, and please give me just a second to go through these 3 pages of videos. Raise your right hand. Okay. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will provide before the Commission at this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
I do.
Yes, I do.
I do.
I do.
Yes. I do.
Thank you all. I will note for the record that you all have responded in the affirmative. A proceeding of this nature necessarily requires the consideration of a wide variety of information that takes several forms. In this case, some of the information and documentation may include commercially sensitive information. The discussion of such information may place an entity at a competitive disadvantage if such information were to be publicly discussed. For the Commission to be able to execute its legal obligations effectively and diligently prior to making a final finding, it must be at liberty to fully inquire relative to any of these sensitive matters without compromising the individuals or entities involved. To do otherwise would be at a minimum unfair and potentially unlawful. Accordingly, my colleagues and I may elect to exercise the discretion afforded in accordance with 205 CMR 101.01 paragraph 7 to close this proceeding to the public to fully address certain matters related to privacy, proprietary or sensitive technical information, including but not limited to software, algorithms, and trade secrets, or for any other good cause shown. Under the same regulatory section, Bally's may request that portions of this hearing be closed to the public as well, and any such request will be considered by the Commission. Any such request made by Bally's must clearly state the matters for which the Commission is being asked to close the proceeding to the public. The closed session will be limited to those matters raised in that request. Before we begin, it is my understanding that a pre-hearing conference was conducted in this matter on January 14th, 2026, with representatives of the licensee, the IEB, and legal counsel, at which procedural and evidentiary issues were discussed. Does anyone have any preliminary issues or objections they would like to raise?
No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. With that, I will ask Attorney Bally on behalf of Bally's to please proceed with any opening remarks you would like to make.
I have no further remarks, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but we understand that at some point we'd like to move that issues discussed concerning cybersecurity measures, corporate governance, internal policies and procedures, and detailed financials, including financials of entity qualifiers that are not publicly traded companies. As such, Bally's moves for a closed session pursuant to 205 CMR 101.017 in order to protect proprietary and or sensitive technical information, and because these issues, if made public, could put Bally's at a competitive disadvantage in the marketplace. And additionally, to the extent that any personal information about individual qualifiers will be discussed during the presentation, Bally's will also move for a closed session as to those matters to protect each individual's privacy interest. We made these requests in advance with the IAB and the Commission's legal counsel, and we understand that they do not have any objections.
Okay, so let's do this. Thank you, Counselor Bally. We may refer back to those reasons and those matters. But with that, I'm going to take it that you're waiving opening remarks, and I'm going to
Correct.
go to the IEB to move on with their presentation. So with that, we'll turn to Attorney Kennedy to make any opening remarks on behalf of the IEB, and then move directly into your presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Nathaniel Kennedy, Enforcement Counsel for the IEB. With me today are Chief Enforcement Counsel and Assistant Director of the IEB, Kathleen Kramer, and IEB Director, Caitlin Monahan, along with other members of the IEB's investigatory team. First, thank you for the opportunity to present the IEB's investigation regarding the durable suitability of Bally's Interactive LLC. For purposes of today's remarks, I will be referring to the applicant as Bally's. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize the investigatory team, starting with State Police Unit, First Lieutenant David Collette and Lieutenant Scott Walker. That also includes members of the GEU and retired GEU troopers working in the capacity as contract civilian investigators who worked on this matter. Additionally, I'd like to recognize the financial investigation team, specifically Chief Financial Investigator Monica Chang, for the tremendous amount of work done on all of this particular investigation and all suitability investigations. As the Commission's aware, this is the culmination of our suitability investigations for the sports wagering operators. So I'd like to express a special thanks to Monica for that. The financial investigations team was also supported by contract investigators from the firm RSM, who I'd like to thank for their hard work. Finally, I'd like to thank CEC Kramer and Director Monahan for their leadership and guidance to the entire team throughout this process. As the Commission's aware, Bally's has submitted an application for a Category 3 mobile sports wagering operator's license pursuant to General Law, Chapter 23N, Section 6B3. The applicant is not tethered to a Category 1 or Category 2 license here in the Commonwealth. The IEB conducted a review for preliminary suitability pursuant to 205 CMR 215.012A and B and submitted its report regarding that review to the Commission on December 23rd, 2022. That report has been marked as Exhibit 3 in your packet today. On January 6, 2023, the Commission voted unanimously at a public meeting to allow Bally's to request a temporary Category 3 sports wagering license. On February 23rd, 2023, the Commission's then Executive Director issued a temporary Category 3 sports wagering license to Bally's. Bally's received its operation certificate on July 1st, 2024 and launched that day. The licensing division rescoped Bally's application based on the legislative amendment to General Law 23N Section 5B and 205 CMR 215.02. On May 9th, 2024, the licensing division determined the application was administratively complete and transmitted that application to the IB for its full investigation. Subsequently, on July 25th, 2024, Bally's notified the MGC of a potential transaction between Bally's Corp and Standard General LP. The transaction consisted of a merger of Bally's Corp and Queen Casino and Entertainment Incorporated. The transaction sought to combine the two entities into one company, with Queen Casino becoming a wholly owned subsidiary of the surviving entity, Bally's Corp. The transaction was considered a transfer of interest under General Law, Chapter 23N, Section 6H, and 205 CMR 229. On October 30th, 2024, after reviewing the transfer application, the licensing division sent a supplemental designation letter to Bally's identifying 8 additional entity qualifiers. The commission granted a waiver of Bally's request for waiver from the requirements of 205 CMR 229 on January 9th, 2025, subject to the conditions that the IEB provide a report of preliminary suitability for new entity qualifiers based on the transfer. That was completed and previously provided to the commission on April 7th, 2025, and that report has been included in your exhibit packet today as Exhibit 5. The IEB continued its investigation for full suitability, including the new entity qualifier designated after the transfer of interest, and those findings are detailed in the report that's been marked as Exhibit 2 in your packet. That investigation was performed in accordance with 205 CMR 215.01C, a further description of which can be found beginning on pages 6 and 7 of Exhibit 2. As you're aware, suitability is an ongoing concept, and the IEB's report is intended to assist the commission in making a determination as to Bally's suitability at this time. The factors that the commission shall consider in making a determination of suitability are found in General Law 23N, Section 6, 205 CMR 215, and 205 CMR 218. These were previously detailed by counsel and are outlined in Exhibit 2 on pages 6 and 7. As part of the investigation, investigators conducted a review of the applicant company Bally's, including its history, product lines, and offerings. Investigators also conducted a site visit of the applicant's office in Providence, Rhode Island. Investigators had meetings and correspondence with Bally's, primarily through Chief Compliance Officer Ilya Trowbridge. The information and responses provided by Bally's were sufficient to evaluate each area of the investigators' inquiry. Bally's cooperated with the investigation and provided information where requested, despite difficulties with responsiveness and communication early in the process. Additionally, as previously stated, 5 individual qualifiers and 11 entity qualifiers were identified for this review. The review conducted by the IEB serves as a window into the operation of Bally's in the time that the IEB and its agents from RSM were able to review submissions and request supplemental documentation. For the purpose of this review, the report and its observations were made primarily from documentation and responses provided. In the report, particularly the financial section, some updates beyond the date that those documents were provided and information were provided has been noted. After the IEB completed its report, it was submitted to Bally's for factual accuracy. In the review for factual accuracy, Bally's had an opportunity to examine the report made by investigators from the results of its investigation and provided written responses that are included in your exhibit packets as Exhibits 11 and 12. Today's presentation will provide an overview of our investigation and highlight some of the key points. All of these steps were taken in order to assist the Commission in determining if the applicant has satisfied the affirmative obligation to demonstrate their suitability by clear and convincing evidence. In today's presentation, you'll hear first from Sergeant John Morris of GEU regarding the method and scope of the investigation undertaken by the GEU and findings of that portion of the investigation. You'll then hear from Dan Mass and Shannon Neville from RSM, who will similarly discuss the methodology and scope of the investigation undertaken by RSM's team. RSM will present the findings of the financial investigation of the applicant, entities, and individual qualifiers. And finally, we'll conclude with the review of Bally's corporate governance. Ultimately, you will hear that following a thorough investigation, the IEB is recommending that the applicant entity qualifiers have established their qualifications for durable suitability as stated earlier by clear and convincing evidence, and the IEB is recommending a finding of this commission for full suitability of the applicant. And with that, we can proceed directly into the presentation of evidence. I will be turning to Sergeant John Morris to explain the scope and methodology used by GEU during their investigation and the findings of GEU. Sergeant Morris, I can turn it over to you now.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Maynard. Good morning, Commissioners, and good morning, representatives from Bally's. For those of you I have not met, my name is John Morris. I am a sergeant with the Massachusetts State Police, assigned to the Massachusetts Gaming Commission Investigation and Enforcement Bureau. Participating in this investigation were Trooper Odom Ang and retired Massachusetts State Police Captain and civilian investigator Michael Banks. After an in-depth review of all applications and submissions from Bally's Interactive LLC, a thorough background investigation was conducted regarding this applicant. In addition to the applicant, The investigation consisted of 11 entity qualifiers. Bally's Corporation, Standard RI Ltd, SGCQ Gaming LLC, renamed Bally's Holdco LLC, EPSG Master SPC Ltd, Standard General Master Fund 2 LP, P Standard General Ltd, Standard General LP, Standard General GP LLC, Standard General Holdings LP, Standard General Management LLC, and Acme Amalgamated Holdings LLC. There were also 5 individual qualifiers: Craig Eaton, George Papaneer, Noel Hayden, Robeson Reeves, and Si-Yun Kim. As part of this investigation, routine communications were conducted with the applicants, which required the submission of additional information and supplemental documents. The process by which this investigation was conducted involved extensive research and the discovery of any additional information which could be learned about the applicant, associated entities, and the individuals from as many sources available to us. Queries were conducted for any criminal history at the state, local, and even the international level. During the IEB's underlying investigation, it only had authorization to review fingerprint submission of individual qualifiers who own 10% or more of a corporate applicant. Without access to fingerprint submissions, and therefore automated fingerprint identification services known as AFIS, the IEB was unable to run national criminal history checks for 3 of the 5 individual qualifiers. Investigators utilized criminal record checks through the Department of Criminal Justice Information System, which is state-specific and reliant on biographical data only. Since the IEB's submission of its report, it has obtained the authorization to review fingerprint submission of all individual qualifiers, and will seek to do so as soon as possible on the remaining qualifiers. Civil litigation databases were queried and reviewed regarding any lawsuits filed against the applicant, entities, or individuals. Particular attention is paid to any suits that contain any accusations of derogatory or fraudulent business practices. In regard to this specific investigation, no litigation was discovered or disclosed that revealed any such accusations or judgment. Educational degrees, professional licensures, and political donations were also verified. Secretary of State and SEC databases were queried regarding any filings reported by the applicant or qualifying entities. Any results obtained, such as UCC filings or liens, were reviewed for derogatory information. No such information was discovered. Open source and media outlet checks were conducted and reviewed, including social media. All content that was reviewed revealed no derogatory information regarding any of the entities involved or individuals. In-person interviews were conducted of Mr. Kim and Mr. Eaton, and remote interviews were conducted of the other individual qualifiers. The interviews were electronically recorded and full reports were prepared. Ultimately, following a detailed review of all relevant factors, including compliance, litigation, open source, and overall integrity, no issues were discovered that would ultimately alter the IEB's recommendation of suitability. Should be noted, however, during the investigation in 2025, Bally's disclosed tax reporting deficiencies related to the generation and filing of IRS Form W-2G in Ohio, which led to significant enforcement action, including a $450,000 fine and multiple remedial conditions. Later in the IEB's presentation, the Commission will hear further information about this non-compliance and the IEB's subsequent review from RSM. Thank you for your attention, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sergeant. Commissioners, questions for Sergeant Morris at this time, knowing that we are going to get that additional information? Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Morris.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Morris. At this point, we can turn to RSM. We're going to be discussing the financial review. I will turn to Dan Mass to present the general scope of the financial investigation of the applicant and entity qualifiers. Dan?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners and Chair. RSM appreciates the opportunity to present the Massachusetts Gaming Commission's investigation findings for financial suitability in today's hearing. The durable financial suitability investigation for the applicant was performed by the combined efforts of the multiple teams working in unison. This included the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, Investigations and Enforcement Bureau, members of the State Police Gaming Enforcement Unit, and RSM US LLP. For the purposes of this presentation, the term "we" or "our" will refer to the collaborative efforts of these distinct groups. To assist with the financial portion of the investigation, we collectively with the investigators performed a review of the financial standing, considering their stability, leverage, and sources of capital of the applicant, Bally's Interactive LLC, or Bally's, and its entity qualifiers, Bally's Corporation or Bally's Corp., Bally's Holdco LLC, Acme Amalgamated Holdings LLC, Standard General Holdings LP, Standard General Management LLC, Standard General LP, Standard General GP LLC, EPSG Master SPC Limited, Standard General Master Fund 2 LP, P Standard General Limited, and Standard RI Limited. To preface, the applicant is 100% owned by Bally's Corp., a global casino entertainment company operating physical casinos and resorts. Standard General LP, or Standard General, is a hedge fund founded by Soo-Young Kim in 2007, which serves as an investment advisor to an array of associated holding companies and investment funds invested in a diverse equity asset mix. The funds managed by Mr. Kim include several with significant ownership interest in Bally's Corporation. The applicant provided audited financial statements for the following entity qualifiers. Audited financial statements for Bally's Corp. Were publicly available through the year ending December 31st, 2024 as part of its required annual reporting as a publicly traded company. EPSG Master SPC Limited for years 2019 through 2024, Standard General Master Fund L2 LP for years 2019 through 2024, and P Standard General Limited for years 2019 through 2023. Bally's Interactive LLC provided 2024 audited financial statements, but did not maintain independent financial statements for years 2017 through 2023. As such, Bally's operational performance for the years 2017 through 2023 were reported through Bally Corp's consolidated financial statements. Furthermore, the audited financial statements of EPSG, SG2, and PSG serve as Standard General's primary vehicles for active investments in the parent company and ultimately the applicant. Given this, Bally's and Bally Corporation formed the primary focus of our analysis, given the availability of audited financial statements that reflect the operating performance of the applicant. Our analysis evaluated the applicant's financial suitability to operate online sports wagering in the Commonwealth by looking at several key areas. The investigation team examined historical financial performance and identified key trends on the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement of Bally's and Bally's Corp. We calculated key financial ratios to gauge changes in liquidity and profitability over time. We reviewed the applicant's market share performance in the Commonwealth and other jurisdictions. We assessed current financial controls. We reviewed certain tax documents, and we analyzed the applicant and its parent company's historical liquidity position through an assessment of available cash, revolver capacity, and outstanding debt and lease liabilities. According to submissions provided by the applicant, Bally's will continue to be funded by its parent company, Bally's Corp. With this framework, we determined whether Bally's is in a reasonable financial position to sustain its operations with support from Bally's Corp. Until it reaches profitability in the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to pause. I believe there may be a request to enter private session or a closed session prior to me asking RSM to speak to the findings with respect to Bally's financial investigation.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, if this is the appropriate time, apologize before. We understand that will be issues discussed concerning Bally's cybersecurity measures, corporate governance, internal policies and procedures, and detailed financials, including financials of entity qualifiers that are not publicly traded companies. As such, Bally moves for a closed session pursuant to 205 CMR 101.01 subsection 7 in order to protect proprietary and or sensitive technical information, and because these issues, if made public, could put Bally's at a competitive disadvantage in the marketplace. Additionally, to the extent any personal information about individual qualifiers will be discussed during this presentation, Bally's will also move for a closed session as to those matters to protect each individual's privacy interests. And as stated, we made these requests in advance with Attorney Kennedy of the IAB and the Commission's legal counsel, and we understand they don't have any objections. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bally.
Yes, there's no objection from the IAB.
Thank you, Counselor Kennedy. Commissioners, are we good with entering in for the purposes that Counselor Bally? I'm getting heads up across the board. So with that, we will enter in to discuss those matters, and we will return to this session. Okay, we're starting to move over back into public session. Give everyone a second and get that screen taken down. I always lose a commissioner when we move rooms. This time it was Commissioner Broder, just in case you're wondering. All right, there, I got him. All right, so we just finished a robust conversation in private session, and we're entering back into public session. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you again, Chair. At this point, the IEB has no further information or presentation. We would be resting on our submissions, and thank you for all of our witnesses.
Thank you, Councilor. Attorney Bally, do you have any questions for Attorney Kennedy or any other members of the IEB relative to the presentation?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We will now turn the presentation over to Bally's. Attorney Bally, please proceed with any presentation.
Thank you. On behalf of Bally's, I'd like to thank the Commission and the IEB again for its hard work, professionalism, and diligence throughout the investigation process and this hearing. Bally stipulates the findings in the IEB reports and rests on the record and testimony presented here today, which Bally's believes shows by clear and convincing evidence that it meets the criteria for durable suitability in Massachusetts, and we look forward to receiving the Commission's decision. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Attorney Bally or any of the presenters relative to Bally's, or are there any other individuals you would like to hear from? Does the IEB have any questions for Attorney Bally or anyone from Bally's or anyone else you would like to hear from?
No questions from the IEB.
All right. We will now turn to the specific itemized subject matters from the notice of hearing. With respect to the first bullet from the hearing notice, which states the durable suitability of Bally's pursuant to 205 CMR 215.01, does any commissioner have any questions for any witnesses present here today, generally with respect to the durable suitability of Bally's pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011? Okay, with respect to the second bullet from the hearing notice, which states the contents of the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau's suitability report. Does any commissioner have any questions for any witnesses present here today regarding that topic? All right. Now that we've heard all the evidence in this matter, before we move to closing remarks, I'd like to turn to my fellow commissioners and once again make sure there are no further topic areas that anyone would like to explore, and that all of our questions have been answered. All right. We will now move on to closing remarks. Each of the parties will be afforded an opportunity to make a statement summing up their position, though they do not need to do so. Attorney Bally, would you like any closing remarks to have any?
Nothing further.
Attorney
Thank you.
Kennedy?
Yes, I do have a few remarks, Chair.
Thank you.
Based on the IEB's investigation, the IEB submits that the applicant and qualifiers have established suitability by clear and convincing evidence based on the criteria set forth in Massachusetts sports wagering laws and regulations. The IEB is recommending positive determinations of suitability for the applicant and qualifiers under the conditions outlined in the IEB's report, Exhibit 2. I will summarize those conditions for the Commission as they are listed already in the conclusion section of the IEB's Exhibit 2. However, first, the IEB recommends that Bally's Corporation provide an update and any remedial measures taken to the IEB within 12 months of the date of any decision of suitability as to the identified areas of moderate risk in its cybersecurity program, including business environment, application and data security, recovery, incident response, and management of open and closed sources. Next, the IEB recommends that Bally's be required to develop a Bally's-specific business continuity, disaster recovery, and incident response plan within 12 months of the date of a decision of suitability to identify and manage its critical business processes. Additionally, the IEB recommends that Bally's perform a review of the most recent White Hat Gaming SOC report and identify required end user controls that must be implemented by Bally's. Bally's should confirm internal controls to verify the accuracy of information provided by White Hat Gaming are implemented within 6 months of the date of the decision on suitability. Furthermore, the review of Bally's Corporation's 2024 10-K surfaced that the company's external auditor issued an adverse opinion on the company's internal control over financial reporting due to material weaknesses of its business. The IAB recommends that Bally's update the commission on steps taken to resolve the material weaknesses in the company's international interactive reportable segment within 12 months of the date of a decision of suitability, and when the issue has been fully resolved. As discussed above, issues existed early in the process with timely and complete communication between IAB and Bally's. The IAB attributes this to excessive rate of turnover for key employees and structural changes to Bally's organization. These concerns have since been resolved. However, the IAB recommends the commission emphasize to Bally's the expectation that all entities and qualifiers will continue to comply with their ongoing obligations of their duty to report under 205 CMR 212. And finally, that the individual qualifiers who have not already provide fingerprints where needed. And with that, I'd like to thank the commissioners, the IAB's investigatory team for their work, and Bally's for their efforts through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Kennedy. Unless there are any further matters that the IAB, Bally's, or my fellow commissioners would like to address, we will now conclude this portion of the proceeding. Does anyone have anything further? I want to thank Bally's for coming today and being present. The qualifiers. Thank you, Counselor, former Representative Bally, for being here. The commission will now
Majority Leader, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm surrounded by former representatives at any and all times. Mr. Bally. The commission will now deliberate about this matter in private. And with that, we are adjourned. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.